Hi everyone, my name is Fanny, and of course I'm an Android developer like lots of you. And sorry if you hear someone screaming mama or baby crying, I bring all the family. Okay, enough about me. Today I want to talk to you about Manuel. Manuel is a blind person. I met him a few months ago, and he shared with me his experience with his smartphone. And today I want to share with you bits of our discussion. Oh, yeah, it's Manuel. So first thing I want to share with you is that sometimes he uses some apps not a way that we would have expected at the beginning. For example, he used an application called Yuka. This application is aiming to help people to know if the food they are buying, if it's healthy or not, just by scanning the product barcode. Well, actually, Manuel used this app to know if the bottle he has in his hand, if it's a bottle of juice, orange juice or apple juice. Second thing I've learned from the discussion with Manuel is that trying a new app requires to him lots of effort and with no guarantee at the end that the app will be accessible. And even sometimes if the app is usable to him, that doesn't mean that the app will remain accessible to him or that all the app is accessible. For example, he's using a music stream application, a French one, and he cannot play the sounds of his music on his Google Home because this feature in the app is not accessible. I also talk with Céline. She's also blind, and we talk a lot about her experience with a shopping application. And from our discussion, I realized that there is not enough apps that are accessible. She shared with me that there is only 10% of the web who is accessible. I don't have the statistic for mobile, but I don't think it's better. And we discussed a lot about our experience with shopping online. And with the pandemic, of course, we all shop online even more than usual. And last Christmas was a nightmare to her because she was willing to buy specific gifts and the website was not accessible. And she told me, it took me like several hours to buy only one thing, where for you it will have taken few minutes, and it's not normal. And I was also surprised that in France there is actually no grocery application that are accessible. Manuel and Céline, they use one website to do that. There is only one website who is accessible for them. And I think it's a shame for blind person. It should be easier to buy to grocery online rather than going to the supermarket. And actually, if you're interested to know how a blind person shop in a supermarket, there is an interesting podcast from Be My Eyes. So I really encourage you to listen to it. Okay, so after this long discussion with Manuel and Céline and getting more and more interested into accessibility lately, I've learned a few things, and I want to share with you some key learnings. The first thing you should learn is that you should stop making assumptions. You should remove from your brain the following sentence: but a blind person will never use my app, because it's always wrong. Trust me, I've made that mistake before. I was developing an application for people who run, and I told myself, okay, I don't have to make so much effort because blind person, they don't run. Well, actually, yes, they run with someone next to them, and actually accessibility is not about only blind person. And also, thanks to a Google research project, I also encourage you to have a look at it, called Google Project Guidelines. Soon they will probably be able to run on their own. So also, second assumption you should stop doing is thinking that disabilities impact a small number of persons, because the statistics are there, and there is actually 1 person out of 5 that is facing or will face disabilities in his life. And if we look closer at the statistic about visual impairment, there is almost more than 200 million of persons that are visually impaired, meaning they are blind or they are with low vision, and this is almost the size of the USA. Next thing I realized is that when all products designed for people with disabilities are actually useful for everyone. Because in some situations, even if we don't have any disabilities, we face situations where we are like a disabled person. Or sometimes it also makes things easier. And I want to share with you 2 personal examples of that. And I'm sure you, if you think about it, you also have in your life example where you use something that is designed first for a disabled person. The first thing is curb ramp. Since I'm a mom, I think they are really useful when I'm with a stroller or with my daughter's scooter. And also, lately I discovered a Google application called Action Blocks. It's an application designed for people with cognitive disabilities. And I actually use this app because I'm always doing the same task at home, which is watching Friends on the TV and reducing the volume of the TV. And so I added 2 shortcuts with this app on my home screen, and that makes my life easier. What also amazed me about accessibility is when you design with accessibility in mind a new feature, you end up with a better solution at the end. And some way, it's empower creativity. It has been proven when you are thinking, brainstorming a new idea, and if you add some constraint, well, actually, you are more creative. And that's really amazing. I started to work on accessibility in my previous company, and we had an application, and first we didn't care about accessibility. And when we started to actually understand what was accessibility and to rethink all the screen of the app, every time it was like a wow effect. Wow, this feature is so much better for everyone. And I want to share with you one example. So I was working on an application for people with Alzheimer's disease, so with cognitive disabilities like having difficulties to remember, to process things, to enter a process. And we had in the application an agenda, and of course in the agenda we had a user story like, I want to create a new event. Here is the screen before we started to think about accessibility. So you can see in the middle there is the event being created. At the bottom there you can add some information to the event with a bottom sheet. So you can add title, when it happens, and location. And on the top, you have some buttons to add it to the agenda or to cancel. And we were thinking about this screen and say to ourselves, is it enough? And we had 1 tool to realize if it was enough or not. This is the tool. We wonder every time, what if I'm in the application, I'm creating an event here, and I'm getting a phone call from a friend, from my mother's, and I'm getting completely distracted from what I was doing. And then I go back to the application. How much effort I have to make to remember what I was doing. And by doing that, you almost set up like someone with cognitive disabilities. So let's do that here. Yes. So if we rethink the user story with cognitive issue, that means cognitive issue means people with trouble with attention, with memory, to understand things, and with to process things. So on this screen, what are the issues we can see? So if I'm getting a phone call, I hang up. Yes, so there is a date. So there is something, that probably something with the agenda. Maybe I'm doing a new event. I don't know. There is 2 buttons, the cancel and the add button. But adding to what? Am I adding something to the event? Am I adding the event to something else? There is a cancel button. So is the event already created? I don't remember. You can ask yourself lots of questions. It's not obvious. And at the bottom, there is also many colors and several buttons. And how do we interact? What is the purpose of this bottom sheet? That's all the point we realize on this screen. And we ended up doing a new screen, and that was what we proposed. So on the add button, we started to be more added explicit context. Like if you click here, you add it to your calendar. It may sound weird, but you don't have to think to think about it. We also added everywhere on the app a banner saying what you are actually doing. If you are performing a new action, you are creating a new event. This way, you don't have to make effort. You hang up the phone from your call, and yeah, I was creating an event. Okay. And we also realized that we had many colors, and the purpose of the colors was not so obvious. So for that time, we reduced the use of colors, and we also realized that the bottom sheet added a lot of noise. Like there is several buttons, but do we have to focus first on the event in the middle of the screen, or the bottom sheet, or the button at the top? So we just reduced the bottom screen and adding something to say, okay, if you click here, it's because you want to add more information. I don't know what you think, but personally, I think it reduces mental load, even for me. Last thing I want to share with you about accessibility is that it leads innovation, and I want to share with you two examples of great innovation in accessibility. The first one, sorry, we are on an Android conference, but my first example is from Apple, because they are really, really good for accessibility. They released on the Apple Watch something called assistive touch, and actually people with motor disabilities, they can interact with the watch just by using their fingers, like clenching, pinching, and it will actually move the focus on the watch from buttons to other buttons. I had a video, but it doesn't work here, so have a look on YouTube. It's really impressive. On Google side, there is also some innovation. Oh, the video is working, so no, it's working on my screen here, but not here. Oh, it was working here. Yeah. So here you see it's moving the focus on the button, and it can interact with the timer. So on Google side, there is also a nice innovation, and specifically this one with Android 12, you can control your screen with your face. So it aims for people with motor disabilities, for example, if they are able to perform some gesture with their face, to plug one gesture to one action on the phone. So, for example, if I'm able to look up, I can say when I look up, it will move the focus to the next element. Last thing I want to share with you is that you have to, if you are motivated about accessibility, because I told you it empowers creativity or it will help everyone, yeah, that's a good reason. But the main reason must be that it's a human right. And I told you that 10% of the web is accessible. It's not fair. And today, because of inaccessibility of our product, people struggle in education, struggle in work industry to find a job, to work in a company. So I think it's really, it must be the first reason that motivates you to work with accessibility. Okay, so now I hope you're wondering, how can I improve my app to make it more accessible? Well, working on accessibility implies doing things at many levels. When you think of a new feature, when you design it, when you develop it, and that means lots of people are involved. And today I want to share with you my personal best practice and what I think are the responsibility of the developer. The first thing you should do is learn how to use Tollback. And just to be sure that we are all on the same page, I want to remind you or to just show you the basic gesture of Tollback. So Tollback is a screen reader. To activate it, you go in the settings of your Android phone. And there is also a tutorial. You can do that, and there will be more gestures than the one I will show you today. So Tollback will actually scan your screen from the top to the bottom, from the left to the right, and focus each element at once. So here we have a list of elements. It's a setting menu application. And the first gesture I want to share with you is the double tap gesture. When an element is focused, you can interact with it by double tapping everywhere on your screen. And when an element is focused, of course, here the focused element is profile detail. So Tollback will say out loud, profile detail, 1 of 10, double tap to activate. 1 of 10 because we are in a list of 10 elements and we are on the first element. To move to the next element, there is a new gesture, which is swipe left and swipe right. If I swipe right everywhere on the screen, it will move to the next element. So here it's payment and say payment, 2 of 10, double tap to activate. Next gesture is the single tap gesture. When you single tap somewhere on your screen, it will give the focus to this element. It's really useful as a developer if you are not blind. If you want to go quickly to the menu, you are testing accessibility, you just tap directly to the menu and it's quicker. And also it's used by people with low vision that are using actually Tollback as an helper. The fourth gesture is a configuration gesture. It helps you to configure the swipe up and swipe down gesture. So to open at this configuration gesture and display the menu, you perform swipe up, swipe down, or swipe down, swipe up, and this menu will appear. And you can choose between different type of settings. For example, speech rate it's really impressive actually to see how blind person they use Tollback really fast. It's really impressive. Also, the letter by letter option, I asked Manuel because I didn't understand why this feature and say, yes, when I receive a password, I want to know each letter of the password. So I set these settings. And headings, of course. Headings helps them to move from one element to another element much quicker than going swipe right to each element. This headings appears not so long ago on Android, but you must know that blind users, they are used to this kind of gesture, this kind of behavior with the web, with the H1, H2, H3. It gives you the structure of the page and helps you to move quickly. So yeah, the fifth gesture, of course, is swipe up, swipe down. So if previously I've set up the gesture to the configuration to headings, and if I'm on one headings, for example, here, if I'm on notifications, the previous headings, and I swipe down, it will move to your app language. Okay, now you know the basic gesture of Tollback. Let's see how to develop an accessible app with Jetpack Compose. I will share with you 7 best practices from me. Some best practice will avoid breaking your app, and if you don't care about them, your app can become completely inaccessible. And some other best practice I will share with you, it will improve the user experience. So the first example is about content description to add to important images. For example, here we have a shopping app with a T-shirt, and if we do nothing here, with the image of the T-shirt, a blind user will not be able to know what is the product unless it moves to the 7th element after, when you can see the title of the product. So here it's basically really easy to fix that. You just add content description and you can add a description of the product, or at least the name of the product. There is also another place on this screen where we can improve accessibility, and if we do nothing, the app will not be usable, is the image buttons where you can pick the color of the T-shirt. Here, if we do nothing, Tollback will announce no text, so it's the same. A blind user will not be able to pick the color of the T-shirt. Next example is about decorative images. The nice thing with Compose is actually when you use images, content description is mandatory. So you really have to think every time as a developer, do I want this image to be seen and to be announced by Tollback to blind user, or do I want this image to be ignored? by Tollback. So basically the rules is when you have some element which is a decorative element. For example, here we have error screen, something went wrong, and probably even if the dog is really cute, maybe we want to skip it and just ask Tollback to ignore it. But really, you should always think, should I hide or not this? Because it can also be, in this case, interesting for people with low vision, but maybe see a shape on the screen and being able to tap actually on the dog image and know that, yes, it's an image of the dog. So in this kind of situation, it's mixed. It depends on your content strategy. Okay. Sometimes it can also be useful to improve element description. Here we have a pet sitter application, and we can see the daily rate of the pet sitter. And if we say we do nothing, Tollback will announce $16/days. It's not user-friendly. So to improve that, we had the modifier.semantics property, and we set the property text, and we can add the text with the right way to pronounce it. There is another place on the screen where we can also do that, is, for example, with the rate of the pet sitter. This way the user can understand 4.1, it's the rate of the pet sitter. Okay, next example is grouping elements together. So here it's the pet sitter profile, and just imagine you're using Tollback and you have to go through each element one by one. It can be really exhausting because there is a lot of elements on the screen. So sometimes it's really useful to group elements together. Like here on the screen, there is like an area where we have information like if the pet sitter has a car or is the pet sitter already have dogs. And we can group all this by just adding on the main row modifier.semantics and merge descendant to true. And this way, Tollback will just focus all the row at once and just read every element just at once. There is different part of the screen where we can actually do that. Next thing is sometimes maybe you want to change the reading order. Specifically, when you are designing something on the Z index, like with the FAB button, floating action button, like in Gmail. Here, if we do nothing, actually the button will not be accessible for a blind person, because behind it there is an infinite list of email, at least if it's my Gmail application, there is an infinite list of email. And so if you go to the next element, you just go through all email and never switch to the button, because the button in the tree is set after the list. So today with Jetpack Compass, there is no way to influence this reading order. There is an issue about that, and I think it could be really useful because we could do that before with XML. We can do that with SwiftUI, so we must do that with Compose. But I can show you how to do that with XML. We had two properties, accessibility traversal before and accessibility traversal after, where we could actually say, okay, I want my FAB button to be read before this element, but after this other element. Also, there is a workaround really used by famous application, is actually to test if accessibility and Tollback is activated on the phone. And if so, performing another UI. For example, in Gmail, when you activate Tollback, it actually moves the create new email in the top. So this way, create new email is like the second or the third element focus, and the app become accessible. Next thing is facilitate navigation through headings. So for example, we have here a Spotify-like application, and it could be nice to be able to move from good evening to continue listening part to popular playlist part of the screen. So it's really easy. You had, again, the modifier.semantics with headings inside the color braces. Okay, last example is about switch and checkbox user experience that you can improve. For example, here we have a list of settings. So you can see here there is every time a text and a switch button on each row. If we do nothing, Talkback will focus first on the row, on the text, and say profile details. Then switch on the switch button and say activated, double tap to toggle. And it can be really long to go through all the list this way, and maybe sometimes you just maybe wonder, okay, is this toggle button is actually for these settings or the next one, and it can be really confusing. So a good idea could be just focusing the all row, and when the all row is focused, just getting the switch state and being able to toggle it when the all row is focused. So to do that, you have here the switch, and you can just set null to uncheck change. Thanks to Yolanda. Actually, at the beginning, I used modifier.clear and set semantics code. But Yolanda told me from the DevWell team that every time there is a cheaper way to disable Talkback, we should use that. So here, if we do that instead of using modifier.clear and set semantic with nothing inside it, it will say to Talkback, ignore this element. So here, okay, Talkback will focus the row and say profile detail. And if we do nothing, the blind user don't know there is a switch button and cannot perform any action. So we still have something to do. So on the row, we had the toggleable action, and we perform inside the toggle. And also we had dot semantics, and we set the property state description to say what will be the things to announce when the state is changed. So here, if the focus is on this row, it will say profile detail on, double tap to toggle. But I can change also to say something else than on, off. Okay, that's it for the list of my best practice and all the reason I think why you should think about accessibility. Accessibility is a really exciting journey. You will really, when you develop, you really realize, okay, I'm developing something for people, and it's really great, really empower your feeling. So please try to do that. And also, I've talked a lot about blind person here, a little bit about people with cognitive disabilities. Accessibility is about lots of things, so try to understand what are other disabilities. And that's it. Next step, you can have a look to the Jetpack Compose documentation, the new code lab, and try Talkback. Thank you.